I would like to introduce the last intervention. Is Mr. Hassan Al Derham. He's a well-known civil engineer and also president of Qatar University.
Thank you very much. I will speak in Arabic, so if you would like to use the translation tool, it will be better, please.
At the outset, I'm going to ask a few questions and try to challenge a few of the assumptions mentioned by my colleagues just shortly. Mr. Masoud Ahmad mentioned that Qatar, for instance, relies in the majority of its citizens on public jobs, public government jobs, and 85%. That is, let's take a trip down memory lane. 2 generations ago, Qatar and the Gulf countries before the discovery of oil, citizens of this country relied primarily on their own efforts, be it through fishing, pearl diving, and commerce in general. The Gulf region was known to be a transit country for trade movements between Eastern Asia and India on the one hand, and Europe and other countries on the other, through the ports and harbors of Basora, for example, and other maritime routes. So originally, our people were considered entrepreneurs back then. However, with the discovery of oil and the exploitation of oil, people took the easier road, that is, the more comfortable road, which is heavy reliance on government subsidies and government allowances and government jobs as well. This is how people started taking up government jobs, because this was considered as an easy and an easily accessible sector. Graduates are now being encouraged to become entrepreneurs. In our national plans, we heavily need strategies in order to establish a balance between these issues. In the last few months, we have witnessed the latest global changes. For instance, the surprising access of Mr. Donald Trump to the US presidency will entail new challenges and changes. If he were to carry out his electoral plan in terms of foreign policy, economic approach, etc. This will require from a number of countries to re-examine their own policies. Therefore, the higher education sector in these countries have to review and re-examine their own policies. Since education is an intrinsic part of society and the economic cycle, it has to accompany the latest changes. All these challenges cast a shadow on the educational sector and the increasing competitiveness in the business sector. These changes, these shifts, will highlight the expected role of higher education systems that will be affected in 2 ways. First, higher education institutions are a place where scholars, where thinkers gather and debate and come up with solutions to the challenges in the society. Particularly if these educational institutions were national, just like the University of Qatar or Qatar University. At the same time, these institutions have to follow up on the latest labor market needs. My colleagues mentioned, for example, the future technological developments, the so-called disruptive technologies, which will affect the entrepreneurship and business sectors. In the early 90s, we saw a big company like Kodak having to go out of business because photography had become digital instead of the analog conventional photography. We also saw this in different companies, such as Uber, for example, which is operating a real change in the way people deal with means of transport. We will even see this happening even further when it's a machine-to-machine conversation or the Internet of Things. So this changing nature of different information and data, when we talk about Google and Apple and other data companies, this will cause a real shift in the types and needs of the market. And this is something that educational institutions have to follow up on and draft their curricula accordingly. We know that the Arab region suffers from high levels of unemployment. Our economic, science, and technological advancement is threatened by the political and security instability. Even though in Qatar we have good resources and good political environment, we cannot overlook two things. First, in Qatar, we have to understand that this world is interconnected and we do not live in our own bubble. Everything is interrelated and everything is affected by the latest global trends, be it oil prices, trade liberalization and market openness and others. We shouldn't also overlook the limited nature of these non-renewable carbon resources, and therefore we should not rely on them as a sole source of energy. The only unlimited source of potential is our human thinking. The need for economic diversity and building a knowledge-based economy and society is something that we have been working on for the last decade. Qatar National Vision 2030 has already been announced. And in Qatar, a number of initiatives were taken by the government. For instance, education in general was re-examined and recalled into question, as well as higher education in Qatar University. 12 years ago, or more than 12 years ago, there was a project to renovate and to develop this university, and it got its own autonomous budget, which allowed it to gain academic credentials and devise its own curricula in line with the labor market needs. Qatar Foundation for Science Education and Community Empowerment was established with a number of initiatives that it took, such as Qatar National Research Fund, Qatar Science and Technology Park, QSTP, and the Hamad bin Khalifa University, the HBKU, which is a research university. 3 national research institutes joined HBKU. So there are a number of initiatives taken by the state in this regard. We also, in the state of Qatar, are seeking to further and promote a number of initiatives and programs, such as developing our social and human sciences projects, as well as Islamic and legal studies and Sharia studies. We all know that the development that took place in a number of universities was originally focused on applied sciences and such as medicine, engineering, etc. However, we still lag behind international universities when it comes to human sciences and social sciences. Why? Because our Arab people did not deal with the Arab Spring the way they should. Or how did this manifest? And the fact that they didn't deal with the Arab world, with the Arab Spring as they should have, because we lack the proper thinkers and think tanks. We should have been able to orient this new trend of the Arab Spring to a better outcome, so as to serve the ambitions of our Arab people. This is not only the case of Qatar University or other universities in the GCC. This happens also in all parts of the Levant. Graduates of social sciences in the West find a very important role to play, find for themselves a very important role to play in their communities, which isn't the case for us in the Arab world. This is one of the things that we will try to work on in the near future. Can you kindly be brief? In reviewing our strategic research objectives, we have identified the main skills and competences that we have to focus on to devise an educational plan to achieve these objectives, because conventional education is no longer able to keep up with the latest fast changes in different sectors. And we focus on the main competences, which has become a pressing need, mainly language skills, mathematical skills, good communication skills, cooperation, participation, research, and problem solving. In our future plans, we will try to guarantee that the outputs, the graduates of these universities can find a good job and can find a good way to use their skills. Thank you.